Mindy Pelz? More like, Mindy, please, you ain't no doctor. Oh, come on, that landed. Enough of that anyway. Despite presenting herself as some sort of expert on nutrition, in reality, what we have here is nothing more than an unsuccessful chiropractor whose confidence is mistaken for expertise. Please do not take my word for it though. If you know where to look, well, this person will tell you that their advice isn't worth a hill of beans. Dr. Mindy Pelz is not a real doctor. This person studied kinesiology at the University of Kansas before going on to collect a degree from Palmer College of Chiropractic in San Jose, California. Please note that school is named after a fellow who beat his son with a strap and claimed to cure deafness by cracking a man's back. True story, look it up. Interestingly, Mindy Pelz doesn't actually mention this on most of her content. Occasionally you will see a DC appear after her name, but this qualification simply means she passed chiropractic school and nothing more. You'll be hard pressed to find this on her websites, and in many of her videos it's totally ignored. Of course, we all know why that is. If Pelz openly admitted to being a chiropractor and not a doctor, the entire house of cards she built would come crashing down. Her entire business today exists on a false reality that allows her to present herself as an authoritative figure on subjects that have absolutely nothing to do about cracking backs. And look, all you chiropractic fans out there, I have zero interest in your defense of this sham field of study. It's been proven time and time again, it is not real. Here's the deal. I will say the same thing about Mindy Pelz that I did about Alan Mandell, another chiropractor masquerading as a doctor. I could care less about the claims these individuals make about diets or other medical topics. They're wrong, and we'll get more into that in a bit, but as individuals, we are free to choose what advice we listen to and from whom we get it from. The problem and we as a society should have here is the misrepresentation of qualifications. Is Mindy Pelz a real doctor? Hell no. And chances are she probably wouldn't even been allowed to attend med school after graduating with that bachelor's from Kansas. And yet her shtick is that she is a doctor, that somehow she is a qualified professional able to give out advice on these topics. This is a deceitful practice at its core. Would people have been so inclined to listen to her advice if she wasn't Dr. Mindy, if she didn't slap that doctor prefix before her surname? I would probably say no, they would not. But then again, if it was good and trustworthy advice, maybe they would have. When a chiropractor puts the word doctor in front of their name and starts talking about and chopping it up about subjects that seem well beyond their field of study, it's a massive fucking red flag here, people. Do you really think these individuals have enough credibility or facts to back up what they are talking about if they're willing to put doctor in front of their names despite not being a doctor? And again, no, studying the field of chiropractic care, or whatever the hell you want to call it, it does not make you a doctor. Unfortunately, not enough people do homework on these quacks and bother to check their credentials. Then again, a normal, honest person wouldn't want to trick others by misrepresenting what they were all about. While Mindy Pelz is not a real doctor, she also claims to be a bunch of other random things, including a nutritional and functional health expert, a recognized leader in alternative health, a pioneer in the fasting movement. This is all nonsense. It's a bunch of nonsense statements designed to fool people into thinking Pelz is somehow more qualified than she really happens to be. The oddest thing about all of this is that Pelz goes out of her way to make you think she's legit, but also tells you not to take her advice. You just have to know where to look. Disclaimers are amazing. It's basically people admitting they are wrong or what they're saying isn't actually correct or whatever the case may be. It's someone saying what they are saying is probably false. But best of all, these disclaimers are almost always hiding in plain sight somewhere in the public sphere. Mindy Pelz has not one but two disclaimers on her website. Both of them spell out why no one should ever listen to her. Let's start with the medical disclaimer, shall we? Here are 3 lines that scream from the top of the rooftops, do not take this person seriously. The information is not advice and should not be treated as such. We do not warrant or represent the medical information on this website is complete, true, accurate, up-to-date, and or non-misleading. You must not rely on the information on this website as an alternative to medical advice from your doctor or other professional healthcare provider. Wow, what the hell are we doing here? Okay. For starters, Pelz is saying the contents on her website and her videos are not advice. If that's the case though, then what the hell are these? It sure seems like advice. The second sentence, though, is what really gets me. Pelz won't even say the medical information on her website is non-misleading. That is a freaking stupendous problem. If someone says they are not willing to promise to not mislead you, well, it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway, you should not be listening to that person. Now, on to the second disclaimer. On 5 separate occasions across 2 paragraphs, you are told to talk with a physician or qualified professional before doing anything Pelz says. Simultaneously, Pelz has admitted to not having any such qualification. The summary of this disclaimer is, talk to a doctor because I'm no doctor. Now look, this ain't my first rodeo here debunking chiropractors pretending to be doctors, so I know already what a lot of you are saying. Well, she does research. Well, she studies this. I'm here to tell you that's not the case, and here's why. People often praise Pelz for citing this medical research to support her arguments, but much like her doctor credentials, when you root around and gain an understanding about what she's actually referencing, it doesn't hold up. Pelz is extremely guilty of committing genetic fallacies. Like, this is something she does pretty much all the time. In other words, the source of something she states validates whatever she is saying, despite the fact it has been wildly manipulated to create a conclusion far different than what was originally intended by those who did the research and made the original conclusion. A great example of this in action is her video on the shocking benefits of carbonated mineral water. It's not shocking, by the way. I'm just gonna spoiler alert, not shocking. Anyway, her focus is on this phrase mineral carbonated water, which is not a focus of any of the studies she's about to cite. For reasons, she adds the word mineral, I guess, to give it some of her own flair. I don't understand why she's done this when carbonated mineral water is never mentioned by name.
There's 4 things I want you to know about mineral water, especially the carbonated kind.
These studies primarily focus on carbonated water, so yeah, it's not a great start, but whatever. Let's go to the tape.
Really interesting study. In preparing for this video, I went down lots of paths of trying to look at where carbonated water is of benefit for us. I just don't think we talk about this enough, so I wanted to make sure I brought you all the science I could find. And there was something really interesting that there were several studies, I'll link them in the notes, that showed that carbonated mineral water will improve digestion.
The real reason no one talks about this is because there are only 2 studies that exist about carbonated water as it relates to digestion, and both were extremely narrow in scope. The first, which took place in 2002, focused on the impact it had on patients with chronic indigestion and constipation and only had 20 participants. The second focused only on patients who had had a stroke and were bedridden.
So think about this. Have you thought about mineral water, carbonated mineral water? So here's what it does, is it stimulates the vagus nerve.
None of the studies cited here about carbonated water ever mention the vagus nerve. You will find some information about drinking any kind of water and the vagus nerve, but linking it to drinking carbonated water is pretty misleading.
Well, what they're showing is carbonated mineral water can help you stimulate the vagus nerve so everything relaxes and you're able to swallow your food a little bit easier.
This is an excellent example about what I'm talking about. Yes, there are studies that have shown drinking cold carbonated water can improve swallowing. From what I have seen, none of them mention that water containing minerals or anything related to the vagus nerve. What we have here is the taking of one truth, manipulated to this wild extent, and invalidated because it was in a study. Like, what the hell? What is this? Oh, God, there's more too. Frick.
Why would mineral water, carbonated mineral water, help with constipation? Well, if we know it stimulates the vagus nerve, improving your body's ability to relax, when you're able to relax, you're able to have more efficient bowel movements.
Just a reminder, we are talking about 2 studies here, both of which are extremely narrow in scope. Also, neither of the studies mention the vagus nerve at all. Her conclusion on what's happening here isn't actually supported by the research she is citing. Let's not forget, this individual does not have a medical background.
Is that there is evidence that the carbonation, the bubbles, actually are making you feel full longer. Now we're drinking it with our food so that we are stimulating the vagus nerve, so our digestive system is relaxing, and we're starting to see that it's causing our stomach to feel full a little bit sooner because the bubble is making the stomach feel full, so you're not going to eat as much.
So, bubbles have nothing to do with this, based on the study she is referencing here. Carbonated water has an impact on the sympathetic nervous system, of which the vagus nerve is a part of. Anyway, the research stated that carbonated water can cause fullness to last longer after a meal. The researchers also added that more research was needed to understand what the correlation was about and just how all of this worked. The conclusion of this video is very simple. It should be that drinking carbonated water, not carbonated mineral water, but drinking carbonated water can make you feel fuller for longer after a meal. It can help with indigestion and constipation and will improve swallowing if cold. Interesting? Sure. Shocking? Not so much. But what was Mindy Pelz's conclusion here?
So what we're going to start to see is that you're full longer, you're more relaxed, which leads me to another key piece here, which is it's going to help you lose weight. When all those things are lining up, you're going to find that you can lose weight a lot easier.
Absolutely not. How anyone can get that conclusion from these studies is absurd. Nothing supports those last 2 claims in the slightest. It's adding 2 and 2 and getting 69. Nice. What's not nice, though, is the misleading method used. Wait a second. On her website, Mindy has a disclaimer saying she may mislead you. Wonderful. By the way, this is a pretty tame example. You will find plenty of other cases of this in action on Reddit, and I'll link to a thread in the description below this video. Of course, Pelz isn't always manipulating studies to create fictitious conclusions. Here she is just making things up as she goes along.
You might have to pull in some of the biohacks, and my favorite is infrared sauna. And nobody does an infrared sauna better than sunlighting. So if you don't have an infrared sauna, it is like forced relaxation. That's what I love about it. Because I know, again, I'm a rushing woman. All of these things I'm telling you, I'm starting to implement myself. I've applied them in my own life. And what I've learned when I step into an infrared sauna is I can be in this incredibly stressed out state and not know how to get myself into parasympathetic. But you put me in a sauna and boom, within 5 minutes, I'm in that parasympathetic state.
These are the ramblings of a chiropractor talking about a subject they know nothing about. And here's the deal. It's said with such conviction and such confidence that people may buy into the reality, or they may buy into the fact that, hey, this person could actually be informed and be smart. hey, if you didn't know any better and squinted your ears real hard, maybe you could talk yourself into believing it. But that is also why, spoiler alert, children believe in Santa Claus. Even though it doesn't really make sense as a child, it is presented in such a way that makes the myth believable. Ultimately, there's nothing wrong with fasting. I don't have anything against it. If you want to do it, do you. By all means, just don't kill yourself. And, I think if you search hard enough, there are a few pieces of advice from Mindy Pelz that aren't awful. I mean, some of it is actually, I guess, kind of solid. Unfortunately, it's lost in a sea of misrepresented medical studies and make-believe. Her entire authority is built upon a falsehood. Mindy Pelz is not a doctor and shouldn't be passing herself off as one. If her advice, sorry, I forgot that disclaimer from earlier, so I can't call it advice, but if what she was saying happened to be truthful and worked, there would be no need for a phony title prefix. Just be honest with people. And that's what this all boils down to. Mindy Pelz is guilty of making stuff up. She's guilty of committing genetic fallacies pretty often. And yeah, sure, maybe she has a good piece of advice or two, but you can't overlook these. How often does the chiropractor cite studies or research as a reason to believe what she claims, despite her conclusion being wildly different from what was presented in the first place? That's not cool. And you know what else isn't cool? The fact we live in this world where phonies with a iPhone and a microphone get to make themselves out to be something they're not and give people advice they have no business giving. That is why you should always do the homework when it comes to this generation of YouTube medical experts. Maybe what they're saying is worthwhile, but perhaps they're simply looking to make money off of you. Judging by the disclaimers on Mindy Pelz's own website, not to mention the countless products and classes she's trying to flog off on her fans, it's pretty easy to see what side of the fence she is sitting on. Anyway, that does it for me. I'm Cheyenne Hollis. This is the Touchback. If you'd like to know more about other scams and crappy chiropractors moonlighting as doctors, well, you can check out the playlist in the upper right hand corner of your screen. Until next time, though, as we're fun to say around here, hashtag take it out to the 25.